So let's bring in Vic Micolucci. He was actually in court when the prosecutor in this case, Rich Manti, was there. I kind of stood up and said, okay, we understand that the defense needs more time on this trial. Very, very interesting, the coincidence between what's going on out in this search and also what happened this morning in court.
Certainly, and not a lot was said in court at all this morning. We know that Ruben Ebron was brought in about 10:05 this morning. He was in his jail jumpsuit with shackles and handcuffs on. He walked in. He did not really say anything. The judge swore him in, asked him to raise his right hand, and then the judge asked him if indeed he really wanted to waive his right to a speedy trial, like Ruben Ebron's defense attorneys had already told Judge Mark Borrello. Ruben Ebron basically said, yes, sir. Richard Manti with the state attorney's office said he did not object. The judge agreed. He said that the next pretrial hearing would be next Tuesday. So we thought that that was all that there was. We thought that there was some sort of delay just because of another witness, maybe some new evidence. Later, we would find out that it is possibly related to this search. Now, shortly after the hearing, I spoke with two women who were standing outside with signs demanding justice for Lonzie Barton. One of them, Sabra Rue, is a distant relative of the missing toddler. Here's what she had to say before we broke the news about this search in the Bayard area.
I'm a little bit upset because it's going to take us longer to find him now. I was hoping somebody would break by now and tell us where he is.
So you thought the trial would bring out the information to find Lonzie's body?
I was hoping. I was hoping that maybe one of them would talk and tell us where he was. But guess not.
This is a baby that does not have a voice. He could not defend himself. He was dependent on grown adults to defend him. And I really would like for them to come forth and tell the truth and find out. Let's find out what's going on with this baby.
So again, all of this could have changed because we spoke with those two women before the news broke about this search. I also spoke with Ruben Ebron's mother, Wanda. I asked her, did she know that he was going to ask for a continuance, basically a delay in the trial this morning? She said, I don't have any information. I don't know anything. She told Chris Parento a little bit later, basically that she thought that this possibly was coming, but she did not have the details. She certainly did not know before the hearing. I also spoke with Richard Manti with the state attorney's office after this hearing. He said he really couldn't have any details right now. He could not share anything. He just had no comment, but more would come out in court. Again, this was probably 15 to 20 minutes before we first heard about this search in the Bayard area near 295 and Phillips Highway. 4 possible human remains, which now some sources are telling us may be linked to the disappearance of Lonzie Barton. So I'll remain here at the Duval County Courthouse finding out what new information there is here. But for now, live downtown, I'm Vic Micolucci, Channel 4, the local station.
Vic, thank you. Let's extend our coverage of this story around people's waters. An attorney not connected with this case, but who provides us with legal analysis, joins us now here on the news at noon. If Ruben Ebron did indeed lead police to Lonzie's body, does this suggest that perhaps there's some sort of a deal that was on the table?
Absolutely, and we have to go back to the beginning of this case. We saw really the characteristics of Ebron. We saw that even then that he was a negotiator. So we can assure ourselves that he's negotiated something at this point to lead them, based on what we're hearing, to the possible remains. I suspect that it's probably some type of plea deal where he's not just said death penalty is off the table, then that would mean he's looking at life. I suspect that he's put a term, a number term to any potential amount of time that he may have to spend.
But wouldn't that then hinge on what he would be charged with? Because let's assume for a second that that is the case, and he maybe says that this was an accident. You know, we're just guessing here, and maybe says this is an accident. What still, though, is the benefit to lead them to a body when right now he's just facing a third-degree felony charge?
Well, he's facing a third-degree felony, but he was also looking at an escape charge. He was looking at falsifying information or lying to the police. So if you added all of those counts together consecutively, he was certainly looking at a great amount of time, maybe 15, 20 years. So I believe that he has looked at, obviously, the circumstances with Lana Barton coming on, and maybe he felt like there may be some inching closer to some some revelation, along with the fact that he was likely going to look at spending an incredible amount of time in prison anyway. And he said, what is the best way that I can resolve this? Let me get some type of package deal.
So you're thinking, you know, when you heard that Lana was going to testify against him, it's almost like, all right, the noose is tightening around me. I'm out of friends here.
Absolutely.
I've got to do something. And like you said, he's known as a negotiator. So does he go to police and say, look, this was an accident? You know what? So regardless of what you find, what forensic evidence, how the child died or whatever, you know, this is what I think is going to be fair. And why does the state agree to it?
Well, the state may agree to it because they realize that they're out of answers, or it may take them such a long time to get to the answers that they were looking for, that this is in the best interest of, you know, the state, the community, everybody to have some type of closure. And again, he's not going to be getting out in 5 years. I suspect that he's still going to be looking at a substantial amount of time for whatever his reasoning is, if it was an accident or intentional.
So if it's 30 years, is that without parole? Without a chance for parole?
Absolutely. In Florida, there isn't parole. So he would be looking at 30 years, but there would be a possibility of gang time unless they've negotiated it.
But again, it all comes down to what he's charged with, because the judge has to work within what the minimum mandatory sentencing guidelines are. So he has to be charged with something that puts him in the range that he's looking for as opposed to what he faced.
Absolutely. Well, if it's first-degree murder, that would mean there would be a minimum mandatory of life. But everything else really gives him a range, and it's going to be negotiable. So even if you dealt with a second-degree murder or manslaughter, you know, you're going to be in a range of maybe 15 years to life. And that's a lot of, you know, room to negotiate.
And I've got to believe that the state attorney knew, and we talked about this morning when you were on the morning show, that this trial wasn't going to be over quickly. It was going to be long and drawn out. So they're cutting their bets here and just saying, okay, we'll close the books on this one and put the guy away.
Absolutely, and think about all of the appeal issues that have just gone away. We've had several hearings as it relates to Williams Rule hearing, and you know, those are issues that are just not that clean cut when you're talking about, are we going to be able to talk about all of his prior drug dealings, and is that going to become a feature of the trial and then obviously cause a lot of appellate issues.
What do you make of Angela Corey, the state attorney herself, going to this scene? Does that convince you more that this could, in fact, be Lonzie Barton?
Absolutely, and it means that she certainly was involved in the plea negotiations from the beginning. So definitely we know Rich Manti has some authority, but he certainly did that with Angela Corey's blessing or her concurrence, saying this is what we need to do, and then she's showing up on the scene making sure that she participates.
People have characterized Ruben Ebron as arrogant. Some people will say it's better to say self-confident. This is a man who just thinks that he is in control. Is he still really in control in some ways? You know, and I'm just asking you that from your perspective as somebody who's represented people who probably have some of the same personality characteristics.
I would say so, because if he called the police and said, listen, I'd like to strike a deal, or even if they called him and said, listen, now that Lana has pled, are you willing to rethink? He's still in control, and he's still saying, I want to make sure that I place my demands on the record, and then I'll give you what you want. And it looks like that's what has occurred.
So he walks around the jail going, hey, this was done on my terms. It's cool.
I think either way, he's accomplished a goal that's definitely in his favor.
Obviously, we're all sitting here waiting, wanting to know what's going on, what has been found. We know that it's remains. Is it Lonzie Barton? From the legal standpoint of this, we know that the judge has decided that, you know, the next hearing is going to be on Tuesday, next Tuesday. It's a long time to wait. When would we know if there's some kind of plea? Would we wait until next Tuesday? Could this happen tomorrow?
I think that we may find out bits and pieces in between then, but it really could be beyond Tuesday that we find out if there was a plea and the specifics of the plea based on what we've learned up to this point.
Why that chess game?
I say that they are really keeping this under wraps because not only do we have to verify that this is Lonzie, but I believe that there are so many other pieces in here that they're going to want to verify. They're going to want to know, are there other possible co-defendants that are involved, other possible witnesses that could be involved? So I think it may be a little bit longer.
And assuming DNA evidence to go ahead and get a positive identification, you're talking, what, 6 to 9 months minimum?
Yeah, absolutely.
There. It could be that long before we find out for sure?
Yes, because we do know that, you know, DNA can take a while. So you could be talking about 2 to 3 months just for the testing to be finalized. And that's going to be critical because they're going to want to verify whatever story Ebron gave them to determine, like you said, the charges and the nature of the correct charges.
And your implication is that while they may conclude the investigation into Ruben Ebron, there may be other facets to this that they're trying to build a case on.
Absolutely, because we know that there is a possibility that these other alleged drug dealers may be involved in it. We just don't know what the specifics of the story is.
The catalyst definitely, you think, no question then, was Lana Barton's plea last week?
I definitely believe that that was a great motivating factor, really, for all parties involved.
Rhonda Peoples Wanders, thank you very much. Appreciate your insights. We'll certainly have more throughout the course of the day. Appreciate you being here. Now, those who live in the area are telling us the police have been there since last night. Robert Richardson described the area police are searching.
The area that's roped off is historical. Is historical in terms of family. His historical with the church that's in the back drop. It's like a family-oriented neighborhood. Everybody knowing each other. It's just sad. It's sad that this type of activity is happening here in this community.
And so it's interesting also because, you know, he was also saying that this dirt road where they have found these remains is a road that's been there for many, many years before the construction even started in that part of the interstate, and that it's kind of, there's potholes and everything. And it's interesting because you would have to live in the area or maybe have grown up in the area to really know that that road's there, is because it sounds from what the neighbor told us that you'd have to really be in that, living there to know where to find it.